Maori culture. The Polynesian people that settled in New Zealand many years ago formed the unique culture, language, and traditions of the Maori people. Today, Maori people live throughout New Zealand and many are actively involved in keeping their culture and language alive. The folk group measure about 15% of the popularity in New Zealand, which means it is the largest minority group in New Zealand. Maoris celebrate a big food festival in New Zealand, which is a very popular festival in the country. On this festival, they eat traditional Maori food, which is a mix of cultivated, hunted, and gathered food. Maori people describe themselves by their tribe, subtribe, mountain, and river. Family and keeping your loved ones close is a huge part of the Maori culture. Dancing is also a big part of the Maori culture, and the kapa haka, which is the Maori performance art, incorporates singing, dancing, and facial expressions. This dance art is probably the most symbolic recognition sign of the Maoris. The kapa haka is performed by the All Blacks, which is New Zealand's national rugby team before every match. Maori tanga is often used as an approximate synonym for the Maori culture. Maori culture in the modern era has been shaped by increasing urbanization, closer contact with New Zealanders of European descent, and revival traditional practices.
The Maori language is unique, and while its knowledge was lost for many for a while, it is now promoted and encouraged in New Zealand. Maori is the official second language of New Zealand, and the basics are taught in most schools. In recent years, the introduction of Maori language nests has revived the Maori language.
Butterflies by Patricia Grace. This short story is about a girl who lives with her grandparents. The grandparents are Maoris and they are farmers. The girl is going to a school and one day her grandparents ask her if she can read one text for them. She starts, "I killed all the butterflies." Then her grandparents ask if the teacher liked it. The teacher said, "Butterflies are beautiful creatures. Butterflies visits all the pretty flowers. They lay their eggs and then they die. You don't kill butterflies." That's what she said. Then her grandparents were quiet for a long time. "Because you see," the grandfather said, "your teacher, she buys all her cabbages from the supermarket, and that's why." This text gives me the impression that people see things different. The grandparents are Maoris and they don't like butterflies because they eat their cabbages. The teacher can just buy the cabbage on the supermarket, but the grandparents is growing their food by themselves. The girl is defending her grandparents and wants the best for them. That's why she wants to kill all the butterflies. Other people, like the teacher, thinks that butterflies are romantic and it's a good creature.
The grandparents have to grow their own food by themselves. This shows that the Maoris are farmers and maybe they are poor because they can't buy their own food.
The main character in this text is the granddaughter and grandparents. She is in Maori, and in the way she's written the text is describing a way of telling facts around the Maori's treatment from other people. It seems like in the text that her grandparents know their problems and issues with other people.
The moral of this story is that people can have a different view on things, and you should not blame any or discriminate them for their view. The Maoris didn't like their butterflies, but the teacher did. People's social and cultural background determines how they develop their values. The main topics in this text are the differences in society and nature, and the difference between people and what they think about different things.
When the British came to New Zealand, they signed an agreement with the Maori. This agreement was called Treaty of Waitangi and was settled in 1840. The agreement was based on that New Zealand would become an English colony. In return, the Maori people should be protected by English law. The relations between the indigenous population and the colonists were peaceful at first, but eventually conflicts arose which led to war. The reason why the relations were so bad were because the colonists took over several land areas. In addition, the Maori population were in minority. When the colonists settled in New Zealand, they brought epidemics which the immune system of the indigenous population did not have. These epidemics spread rapidly and many Maori people died. The Europeans also brought firearms which the Maori population did not have access to earlier. As a consequence of this, the wars between the different tribes became bloodier and destruction of many tribes who did not have firearms. The circumstances between these groups got better, and today the Maori people have an important position in the society. They have, among other things, their own political party and are represented in the New Zealand Parliament. Maori language has been one of the official languages of New Zealand since 1985 and is taught in every school in the country. The colonization also led to merging of the Maori culture and the British culture. An example of this is rugby. This is a popular sport in New Zealand. The sport was introduced by the Europeans, but the best team is called All Blacks. In every game they play, they perform a war dance that comes from the Maori culture. But unfortunately, there are some negative consequences following by the colonization too. Although the cultures have been merged in many ways, there is still a big difference in the sets of cultural values between the Europeans and Maori, and racism is still an everyday concern. As with the Native Americans and Australian Aborigines, a significant proportion of the population have economic and social problems, including higher crime rates, and are as a group stigmatized. One other reason for the economic problems they have is the alienation of their land areas. Whites are more in control of news and media, and still today the United Nations have concerns about how the authorities are handling the situations. Statistics from 1981 show how large the differences were. An analysis of our history has shown that if our people want to change the present situation so that life in its fullness is experienced by all and not just a few, Maori need to secure their own identity and continue to work for equality and be recognized and integrated into society.
The Maori history. The Maori is the original population of New Zealand. The Maoris immigrated from the eastern part of Polynesia in 3 waves. The last immigration wave is the most famous because in this trip they brought with them growing plants and house animals. In their new area they built a new culture, and the Maori hunted on birds and fish which they found around their settlements. The Maoris' first contact with a white person was in 1769, and it was peaceful, but the Maori population was heavily reduced because of the epidemics, and when the weapon was found in 1820, it made the tribal war much more bloodier. In 1858 was a year when Maori was in minority, and the Maori has always fought for non-violence against the white person. As a consequence of this, the Maori got more respect in society, and they got the right to vote. In 1997 was a year where the Maoris won against their treatment and their claim. The victory is named Tinu. Maori have a population around 600,000 people. In fact, that is 15% of the population in New Zealand. The Maoris are still fighting for their rights around countries.